Your blessings. Welcome to today's Law Enforcement Daily Devotional. Today our read was in Job chapters 8 through 11, and there's a really good law enforcement takeaway out of Job that really led me to some questions about current law enforcement. We seem to have an incident every year now, or every couple of months now, where law enforcement is captured on video doing something wrong. Um, and our communities, our nation gets in an uproar and just blames all of law enforcement. And then we see a period or a season where this is acted out and law enforcement officers are ambushed and killed because of the hatred for law. Realize, men and women, that Jesus said they hate you, but they hated me first. Jesus stood for God's law and his righteousness, as we do. Well, they hated him and his law and his righteousness, and there are a lot of people that are just going to rebel. They want chaos, and this is going to happen, and we're going to suffer for it. But a lot of the times, when you see some of these videos come out, law enforcement officers are doing some really egregious things, and you can't have 1 million law enforcement officers in this country and not have bad apples spread out. So we've got to be ready for it. It's going to happen. But what is addressed here in Job is, how do we react when these situations happen? And they're going to happen. We're sinful. We're fallen. Now we can have the righteousness of Jesus Christ. We can be covered by the blood of Christ, and be protected by Christ. We're still going to be sinners this side of heaven. But that's not really what this is about. This is more about, how do we react as Christian law enforcement officers when we find ourselves the target, as the face of law enforcement when something has gone really wrong. Job chapter 8 verse 3, Bildad is one of the guys, the friends of Job, that have come to comfort him, and he winds up asking a pretty hard question. It's kind of a rhetorical question that he asks. He says in verse 3, does God pervert justice? Or does the Almighty pervert what is right? And it got me to thinking, well, no, God does not pervert justice. God does not pervert what is right, doing the right thing. I mean, that's what God stands for. His very throne sits on the foundation of justice and righteousness. This is who God is. So when justice is perverted, or righteousness is perverted, it's done by man. It's done by us. How do we react in that situation? And just my 2 cents for law enforcement departments that find themselves being questioned about what's going on in their own department or in some other department where some atrocity has occurred or law enforcement has been oppressive. So in my opinion, just based on what I see in God's word, how we as law enforcement should react, we should react with truth. We should react with transparency. And then we should react or act based on what we found out. Wisdom is acting. Understanding is learning what the problem is. Knowledge is digging into it and finding out what the root of that problem is. And wisdom is taking action on that problem. And these are the things that law enforcement needs to do. And when we have to take action, we need to get rid of the cancer that's in law enforcement. If somebody's doing something so terribly wrong, where they're violating someone's civil rights or they killed somebody, we need to own up to that. Yep, we let them in. We found out that they're a bad apple, and we're getting rid of them. Not saying that we don't back each other up, or when a brother or sister has done something wrong, but maybe they did it in the heat of a moment. There was no intent to harm somebody. We will help them. We'll come alongside them and help them to correct the problem. A lot of times there's training issues that need to be corrected. But when it's just blatantly wrong and someone has done something terrible, we would take justice on somebody in the civilian world that did that. So why would we not take justice on someone within our own ranks that does that? We've got to be truthful. We've got to be transparent, and we have to take action. Now, with that being said, We have got to pray ourselves up, and we've got to ask God to protect us during these moments. Protect our hearts. Give us integrity of heart, that we do the right thing, that we do the things that God has called us to. Don't let our pride, our anger, our emotions lead us to do something that we shouldn't do. That's not integrity of heart. Integrity of heart is doing what God's called us to do and being strong and courageous in those moments. When we see another officer doing something wrong, be strong and courageous and confront them and make sure that the right thing is done. And the right thing means what God expects of us in His Word. That's why we're reading this Word. That's why we're studying it. We're putting a lot of time and effort into it and doing daily devotionals, so that when a law enforcement takeaway comes up and we can learn from it and we can know what the right thing is to do, we have the knowledge. Hopefully we'll get the understanding. We'll pray that God will bring that to life in us, and then we'll have the wisdom to act on it outside, in our jobs, in our homes, with our friends, and that we will be a good reflection of God. So today's law enforcement takeaway, big. Um, Tomorrow we're going to be in Job again, chapters 12 through 15. Read ahead. If you got any questions, let me know. And come back and let's see what else God's telling us about our jobs tomorrow. So be safe out there and be blessed.